Christmas. If you're hanging out with us today and started continuing your group into this last week, the week after Christmas between the New Year, then you know what? You're going to hear about the wise men today. I hope you've had a great Christmas. We hope you had a great holiday. But more important than that, we hope that you're sticking together because you've really found some value in being in this small group and you're growing and you're connecting with each other. We've talked about shepherds. We've talked about innkeepers. Man, we spent some time with the cousins, Elizabeth and Mary, and you got to hear about Jesus during Christmas. But there's some really key people that we really want to talk to you about today, and we hope that you're wrapping your time up as we head towards Epiphany. And that's these guys that go and see Jesus later. So let's talk wise man.
Jesus was born in Bethlehem and Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem.
I just told them that we're talking about a wise man. You just said wise men.
I did. That's what mine says.
Does mine say
Some
wise men?
men.
Some wise. Was it one or how many were there?
Let me check my footnote. Doesn't say.
Wow. Then how again do we find ourselves in a story where we don't know something?
Imagine that. We've added something to Scripture.
We've added something. But the effect of, I think, if I remember correctly, that we kind of get this three wise men. Maybe it connects to the Trinity a little bit. But there were three gifts given when they met Jesus.
Right.
So it's not the significance of how many actual wise men there were, because it was likely a whole caravan of them. Let's face it, they probably just weren't three of them traveling by themselves. But it's the significance of what those gifts mean, which we hope you talk about in your small group. But that's what's always impacted me, is that the significance of the three through this story. The three wise men, again, it could have been 300 of them, but it was significant that three of these people went up to Jesus and gave him gifts. And there were no angels. There was no Shazam with these guys. But there was a star. But before that, you get to that fear part. We talk about that fear all through this series. You've addressed that fear.
Yeah.
That, what was their fear?
Well, there was a king who wasn't always so kind. King Herod.
Yeah.
Right? So King Herod is sending these wise men, these astrologers, out to go see this baby that Herod's threatened by. To be honest, he's threatened that this Messiah is going to take his place. And so initially we see more fear there then, right? So Herod, out of fear, is sending the astrologers to go find this Messiah and to come back and report to him. Would you say no to the king?
Probably not and live to tell about it.
Probably not live to tell about it. So initially there has to be some fear, in addition to the fact that the king is sending them, and the king already isn't so happy because the king is threatened. Then go find this Messiah that we've heard about. Can I map quest that? Nope. Follow the star. What if it's cloudy? I mean, I know they're good at their job, but there's all of these things along this journey, and then they just keep going and going, and no Messiah, and they keep going, and no Messiah, and they keep going, and no Messiah. A couple years, I think.
I know, gosh. When they get to him, he's not even, and we talk about this too, he's not even a baby when they get there, right? Who takes a 2-year trip just to find a kid?
Following a star.
Following a star.
If you feel threatened by the king, I guess.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years. And the level of commitment, and maybe they were travelers, maybe they just really like to travel a lot. I mean, that could have been part of their MO too, but I just think that they traveled for 2 years. Were they in such fear that if they went back without an answer, that they just, or was it just safer to stay away? Or, there's so many of those kinds of questions that maybe we don't need the answers to, but it's just so cool to look at the story and dig into it and wonder about when they're going to get to the awe.
Right. I mean, they're following these orders of the king, not knowing who they're going to find, when they're going to find them, where they're going to find them. Yeah. And I know that was part of their job as astrologers, right, to follow the stars and things, but I can't help but think there's an act of faith in that as well. Even though it's the king ordering you to do this, there's still an act of faith that's playing out in this, of continuing the journey, even when you feel like the journey should be done by now. should be there, should find this Messiah. Keep going.
How often do we do that?
Right.
How often do you commit yourself and have a faith deep enough to do something for as long as it takes for God to give you the answer that you need? And then what happens when you get there?
Yeah.
And that's what happens with the wise men. And if you keep digging in this story and you keep having this conversation around the table or in the couches, wherever you are, how long is it going to take for you to get to that part of the conversation where you say, do I have the kind of faith that'll get me to that part of the journey? And you're starting a new year. We're getting ready to start a new year. We're doing all of those things. What is that part of the journey going to look like for each one of us?
Right. And we might have some of that terror, right? We've been talking a lot about this terror, this fear, this concern, this distraughtness, but they all have this awe. Each week there's been a point in the story when these characters are in awe. And the wise men get there as well when they meet the Messiah. It makes a difference. And so going into the new year, you might have some fears, some anxieties, some concerns, some questions. But I hope that you can find some awe in all of that as well. And so how can we hold those in tension? And I think we talked about this the very first week, and we're going to come back to it to wrap it up. How can we hold those in tension with our faith moving forward?